Lieutenant Marcus Webb had been stationed on the diplomatic vessel Meridian for 3 months, and in that time he had learned to keep his thoughts to himself. The ship housed representatives from 17 different species, each with their own customs, biological quirks, and sensitivities. Human crew members were trained extensively in cultural protocols, taught to measure every word and gesture, but no one had warned him about the Velthrin. Commander Lyra stood at the observation deck's central console, her tall frame silhouetted against the swirling nebula beyond the reinforced glass. She was reviewing supply manifests, her long fingers dancing across the holographic interface with practiced efficiency. Marcus had been assigned to work alongside her for the past week, coordinating resource distribution across the ship's various zones. He tried not to stare. He really did. The Velthrin were humanoid in the most technical sense, but evolution on a high-gravity world had refined them into something that made humans look unfinished by comparison. Lyra's skin held in subtle iridescence, shifting between deep violet and midnight blue, depending on the light. Her eyes were larger than human proportions would suggest, with vertical pupils that could dilate to capture every photon in dim environments. Her movements held an economy of motion that spoke of perfect muscular control, never wasting a single erg of energy. She was, in every objective measure Marcus could conceive, the most striking being he had ever encountered. "The medical bay is requesting an additional 40% oxygen reserves," Lyra said without looking up. Her voice had a harmonic quality, as if 2 tones played simultaneously. "Do we have the capacity?" Marcus checked his tablet, grateful for the distraction. "Yes, Commander. We can reallocate from the tertiary tanks. The Grellian delegation leaves tomorrow, so their methane requirements will drop significantly." "Excellent. Approve the transfer." They worked in silence for another 20 minutes, the only sounds being the soft hum of the ship's systems and the occasional chirp of completed data transfers. Marcus found himself stealing glances despite his best efforts at professionalism. The way Lyra tilted her head when concentrating, the precise manner in which she tucked a strand of silver hair behind the delicate ridges where human ears would be. He thought he was being subtle. He thought wrong. "Lieutenant Webb," Lyra said, still focused on her screen. "You are distracted. Is something interfering with your duties?" "No, Commander." "My apologies." She finally turned to face him, those enormous eyes fixing him with an intensity that made him want to step backward. Velthrin had no whites to their eyes, just endless pools of amber gold with those sharp vertical pupils. It was like being observed by a large cat, beautiful and slightly predatory. "You have been unfocused for 3 days now. If there is a personal matter affecting your performance, you should report to medical or counseling services." "I'm fine, really. Just tired." Lyra held his gaze for a moment longer, then returned to her work. "See that you rest adequately. We have inventory assessments all week." Marcus exhaled slowly, turning back to his own console. He needed to get a grip. This was ridiculous. He was a military officer on a diplomatic mission, not some adolescent with a crush. Lyra was his superior officer and an alien. Even if fraternization weren't explicitly prohibited, which it absolutely was, the cultural gulf between their species made any personal connection absurd to consider. And yet, 2 hours later, they finished the day's assignments. Lyra powered down her station with efficient motions, collecting her data tablets and organizing them with the same precision she applied to everything else. Marcus gathered his own materials, sneaking one last look as she reached up to deactivate the overhead display. The motion caused her uniform to pull taut across her shoulders, revealing the powerful musculature beneath. The Velthrin had evolved under gravity nearly twice what Earth produced, and it showed. Every movement she made was controlled, graceful, and undeniably captivating. Marcus turned away, muttering under his breath in what he thought was an inaudible whisper. She's flawless. Lyra froze. Her hand hovered over the console, and slowly, very slowly, she turned her head to look at him. Her pupils had dilated to nearly fill her entire eye, a reaction Marcus had learned indicated surprise or heightened attention in her species. "What did you say?" Her harmonic voice had dropped an octave. Marcus felt his stomach drop through the deck plating. Nothing, Commander. Just thinking out loud. You said something specific." She took a step toward him, her full attention now locked onto his face. "You spoke in what you believed was a quiet voice. But you should know that Velthran hearing operates across a different frequency range than human speech. What you consider a whisper is quite clear to us." He wanted the deck to open and vent him into space. "Commander, I apologize. That was completely inappropriate. I will request a transfer immediately." "You will do no such thing." Lyra closed the distance between them, stopping just within what humans would consider personal space. For the first time since he'd met her, uncertainty flickered across her features. "You said I was flawless. Did you mean that in a professional capacity?" Marcus knew he should lie. He should claim he was commenting on her efficient work processes or her tactical assessments. Instead, under the weight of those golden eyes, he found himself telling the truth. "No, Commander. I meant it personally. And I know that's completely out of line. I'll submit a formal apology and request reassignment." Lyra's expression shifted through several configurations, emotions flickering too quickly for Marcus to identify. Finally, she made a sound that might have been a laugh, though it came out as a melodic trill. "You humans are endlessly fascinating. You apologize for admiration as if it were an insult. It's inappropriate given our working relationship, is it?" Lyra tilted her head, studying him with renewed interest. "On my world, to be called flawless by a colleague would be a significant compliment. It speaks to integrity of purpose and excellence of execution. Those are qualities we value highly." "I didn't mean it quite like that." "I am aware. I have studied human expressions and social customs extensively." She paused, and something that might have been amusement touched the corners of her mouth. "You find me aesthetically pleasing." It wasn't a question, but Marcus nodded miserably anyway. Lyra made that trilling sound again. "The feeling is not unilateral, Lieutenant." Marcus's brain stuttered to a halt. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your species has a certain appeal. Velthran find human expressiveness intriguing. Your faces broadcast every emotion through subtle muscular shifts. It is quite captivating to observe." She gestured vaguely at him. "And you are a particularly expressive example. I don't understand what's happening right now. I am telling you that I also find you aesthetically pleasing, though I have been more successful at maintaining professional decorum." Lyra's pupils had returned to their normal size, and she spoke with the same measured tone she used for logistics reports. "However, I am aware that cross-species relationships are prohibited under current regulations, so I have not acted on these observations." Marcus felt as though he'd been hit by a cargo shuttle. "You're saying you've been interested too?" "I am saying that I appreciate both your professional competence and your physical form. But I am also saying that we are both bound by the same regulations. Appreciation must remain theoretical." They stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of unspoken possibilities hanging between them. Finally, Lyra stepped back, restoring proper professional distance. "Tomorrow we will continue our duties as assigned. This conversation will not be repeated or referenced. Do you understand, Lieutenant?" "Yes, Commander." Lyra gathered her materials and moved toward the exit, her gait as controlled and precise as ever. But at the doorway, she paused and glanced back. "For what it is worth, Marcus Webb, you are also without flaw." She left before he could formulate a response, the door sliding shut behind her with a soft hiss. Marcus stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the space she had occupied, trying to process what had just occurred. Outside, the nebula continued its slow rotation, indifferent to the small dramas of the beings who passed through its light. Somewhere in the distance, a star collapsed under its own gravity, creating something new and unexpected from destruction. Marcus looked down at his tablet, still showing the day's completed assignments. Everything perfectly organized, every task checked off with characteristic Velthran efficiency. He noticed for the first time that Lyra had color-coded the files using his preferred system rather than standard protocol. She had been paying attention, too. He powered down his station and headed for his quarters, knowing that tomorrow they would both return to their duties. They would maintain proper professional distance. They would follow regulations to the letter, as both of them had been trained to do. But now, as he passed other crew members in the corridors, as he nodded to the Grellian engineers and the human security teams, Marcus carried with him the knowledge that in all the vast and varied galaxy, with its countless species and infinite possibilities, at least one other being had looked at him and seen something worth admiring. It would have to be enough